All right. So many people have asked me, how am I doing the X32 control using the main faders 1 through 32. And some wanted to know, well, how do you set the thing up? I'm going to do the best I can. I got, as you can see, I got my camera facing down on the X32. That's about the best I can do, people. And we also have Cubase open. And so we're going to get started. All right. So I'm at the Cubase hub. I'll probably give you this little blank template Cubase control. It's just a blank session with 32 channels low. There's no audio, so that you can kind of play with this a little bit. So I'm going to open this up. All right. And you see the faders are all down in the template from 1 through 32, except the master. And you will see that nothing I do has any effect on the faders. So here's what you have to do. If you have the USB to the X32 connected to your computer, then we want to go up here to Studio and go Studio Setup. And where it says add a device, we want to select generic remote. I know a lot of people like to use Huey, maybe, or Mackie control. Maybe I should look more into that. But we're going to start with generic remote. Now, as you can see, it's already got the stuff loaded. That's because it's stored in there. But after you hit generic remote, you're going to hit import. And I'm going to give you this Behringer X32 XML file, and you're going to load that file in and click apply. When you load that file in, all of this will populate. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to connect this generic remote to the X Live. So as you saw, as you heard, you lost me. And you probably saw the faders jump. All right. So now, and I sound way much lower than I did before. Let's see. Testing 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, but I'm still loud. Okay. I'll in my headphone, my mic dropped. Of course, it dropped when the faders picked up on the signal. All right. Now, as you notice, I'm talking. There is no audio showing over here in Cubase. That is because this template is simply a control template. Audio does not pass through the X32. The only audio coming in is I got the mix from the Behringer, or the mix from the computer coming in on 32. I mean, auxiliary 1 and 2, really. So that's how I get audio from Cubase over into the Behringer. But there is no audio on any of these tracks. So you're not going to see any meters jumping. I only want to show you that you have control over the mixer. So in this template that you're going to get, I'm going to give you the link to it. The link will be in the description, and I'll tell you where it's located. You have control over all 32 channels. So, of course, on the Behringer, I'm going to hit channels 17 to 32. In the window, I'm going to slide this over. Now, I have not gotten this thing complete, so I don't know all of the commands. I want it so that if I touch a fader, it'll jump to it in the mixer. And there's a way to do it. I just haven't figured it out. So these are all the mixers, 1 through 32, and the master. Testing 1, 2. All right. So the master and all of the mixers. Now, also in this template, if I select, say, channel 32, you're going to see that the pan works as well. Okay. Now, to do the pan, of course, you have to select the channel that you want to do the pan on, right? Of course, the mute works for all of them. And the mute is kind of tricky. but it does work. Okay. What else? So we have control of the faders. We have the mute deal going on. Okay. Now it will record automation, but the playback of the automation is crazy. The faders will either slam up to the top or they don't move. They just jump to locations, which is not good. Another thing we have control of in this template is I put in here the commands over here. First of all, in the template, you got to select set C over here in the master. When you select set C, you'll see that, let's put this indicator. This is return to 0. This is stop. This is play. Okay, so it's playing. This is record, on and off. And this is, which one is this? Oh, this is fast forward and rewind. And this is cycle. This turns the cycle on and off. And I think one of these is metronome volume. Let's see. So you're definitely going to have to remember. So if I hit play, trying to think. I think I was working on it and didn't finish it. But I'm going to program the metronome volume on one of these knobs, probably the first knob. So some of the basic functions work very well. And it's a start. It's just a starting template. I don't have, there's a lot more I'm learning about it. So you can get this template free from producer Roderick.com, brand new website I'm working on. But I do have this available on the website along with this little template, just so you can see. And like I say, the automation I have not figured that out yet. So let's say I'll put this in automation mode. I'm going to write that one. And you're going to see this does not work. Okay. So we playing and it's funny because it looks like it's making smooth moves on the screen from what I can tell. Okay. We're going to stop. So it looks, let me blow this up so we can look at this. It looks like it's making somewhat of a smooth, but it's not. See how these big gaps? All right. So now let's go back and play, and you're going to see and watch the meters. You're going to see that these guys are not moving. You know, they're jumping. They're not necessarily smoothly moving. So there's some commands that I'm missing or don't understand when it comes to that. I mean, they're moving, but they're jumping, which is definitely not something we want. Also let me go here. As far as what is set up here in the configuration, let me see. Oh, in the remote settings. In the remote settings, I have general CC selected. For the interface, I have just MIDI in and out. I do not have cards selected. Of course, remote is enabled, but that doesn't even matter because I'm not, you notice I didn't even push the remote button. And then over on the left-hand side, I have card MIDI. And then I have fader. Can't see that from here. I have fader, CCC, channel mute, channel pan. All three of those on both sides are selected. Okay. So that's what I have set up. I'm going to have to do some testing with using Mackie. And I noticed even if I change this to say Mackie Huey, I still get the same thing, though, the same behavior when it comes to the automation. Everything else still works, even if I select Mackie Huey. And if I select Mackie, what is that? MCU, same thing. Everything still works. Automation is not any smoother. It's still jumping. Now that jumping could be due in part to where it's not recording the movements. It's probably recording the movements not smoothly. So there's a command that I'm missing when it comes to programming this thing to do either do the mute automation fine. Matter of fact, let's check that, because I haven't really checked that. So I'm going to turn on and see what the mute does. Okay, stop it. Take it out of write mode and let's see what it do. See what the mute do. Let's see what the mute does. Should be simple enough. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So the mute is okay because that's a push button, that's a push button command. Let me get stupid with the mute button on one of these. Oh, it can't do it that fast, huh? Of course, you don't want to do it that fast. No way. Let's see what it do. Okay, yeah. It's not as smooth. And it doesn't read it fast enough. So there's something going on in terms of I haven't figured out how to capture the automation part of it correctly. It can do some automation, but it's at best, I wouldn't use the automation. I want to get to that point though, but I would not use automation. Now, most people be like, well, why do you want to use that when the DAW version works so beautifully? That's just me. When I get a digital console, I don't want one little section to be automation. I want the whole darn thing to be automation. And I know the Wing has that, and I will be getting the Wing. But I believe this guy can do it as well. All right, so how do you set this up? That was another question someone asked me. How do you set this up? It's not as easy, but we're going to do what we can. Let me see. All right. The mixer itself sends MIDI data when you push buttons and turn knobs. So on the MIDI monitor, which is down here in the corner, watch what happens when I push a fader. See that? That tells me this fader is sending MIDI information into Cubase. What about when I hit the mute button? See that? That tells me MIDI information is being sent. What about the solo button? Zero, nada, nada. What about the select button? Zero, nada. What about the compressor button? Nothing. What about the gate? The gate and the compressor, we get nothing. What about if I turn the knobs for either one of those? We get nothing. What about the frequency low cut button? Nothing. Neither do we get anything with the low cut knob. The EQ button, if I hit the EQ button, nothing, turning it on and off. What about if I turn it on and I mess with the gain, frequency, or the Q? We get no MIDI information. Okay. What about the auxiliary or the bus sends? We turn the knobs, we get nothing. There's no MIDI information going over to Cubase, even if I push the buttons 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, and 15 through 16. We get nothing. What about the main bus, mono bus? Okay, it's off right now. Get nothing. Let me turn it on. Nothing when I hit the on and off button for that. It's on now. Nothing. What about the pan knob? Okay, the pan knob, you see I'm getting something. That lets me know that's sending MIDI information from the mixer to Cubase. The on and off button for the pan sends nothing. All right, so let's go to the groups, the DCAs. When I mash them, now they send information. Okay. So the group DCA 1 through 8 sends MIDI information. What about the select button? Nothing. What about the solo button? Nothing. What about the mute button? Okay, so the mute button and the faders for DCA 1, group DCA 1 through 8 do send MIDI information. What about the bus 1 through 8? Bus 1 through 8 sends MIDI information. What about the mute? They do. What about solo? They do not. What about select? They do not. So the same would be for bus 9 through 16. You can get the fader, you can get the mute, but you cannot get solo and you cannot get select. All right, last but not least, what about the matrix 1 through 6, main C? They send MIDI information. What about the mute on that channel? It sends MIDI information. What about the solo? Solo does not. Select does not. Let's go over to the master. We know the master fader sends MIDI information. Master mute. Master mute sends information. What about master solo? No, it does not. Master select? No, it does not. Of course, talkback level? Nope. Hit the talk A button? Nope. Course control and phones? Nope. What about the mono button? Nope. No MIDI information. The dim button? None whatsoever. Let's go to set A. I will say the whole assign section, all of that sends MIDI. The rotary knobs, each of the buttons, and of course you can select the set. And the mute group buttons also send MIDI information. Now, why is that important? If you want to program this board, it's important that the board can send and receive MIDI information. Now that we know what can send MIDI information, we can go to Studio Setup. Now, as you can see, let me see. I'm gonna have to take all of this out. Take all this out because I got a file that can save all of this. Okay, it's a lot. It's a lot. You got testing 1 2 1 2 1 2. Oh, 1 2. Yeah, it's a lot. Let me take this off because it's disconnecting me while we're doing this. So each of these lines have to be programmed individually. So how do you do that? First of all, I'm going to do MIDI in. And I'm just going to show you a couple of these. All right. I'm not going to show you all of them. And MIDI out. All right. So let's use fader number 1. Hopefully you can see that on the what you call it. So I'm going to hit the learn button. And I'm going to move fader. First of all, let me select. Okay. And I'm going to move fader 1. And I guess nothing. Why am I getting nothing? Wow. Interesting. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had a duh moment. All right, so we have a blank template or a blank slate here, and we got our MIDI connected. The first thing you have to do is add a line. Duh. Okay, so a line has been added. Now I can click the learn button and move a button or a fader or whatever, and it's going to learn that fader. Now you see it's got 1 0. So to see if this is actually working, I'm gonna move another fader and these numbers should change. All right, so you change to a 1 and a 9. So fader 1 comes up 1 and 0. Now I can double click where it says Untitled and I can give it a label because it's not gonna know what's what. So I label it fader 1 and it'll do the same thing down here. So we learned that fader 1. Now this will get you in trouble. After you touch that and it recognizes it, please take it off of learn, because any other button you touch is going to switch to those commands and it's going to drive you crazy. So after you get a command learned, then down here under where it says fader, the device, in this case, I'm choosing VST Mixer. The channel, see, I'm selecting track 1. Now, the reason why this track 1 shows up is because I took the liberty of creating 32 tracks. This is how I programmed it. So I'm selecting track 1. Basically, what I'm saying that this fader 1 on the X32 is going to go to track 1 in the session. There are some pros and cons to that, but I won't go into that right here because I don't want the video to be too long. We're already 22 minutes, 23 minutes in. Then the value action is volume. So fader 1 is track 1 from the VST mixer, and I want to control the volume. The other thing up here is under the first heading, they have flags over here. So what are the flags? When I click that, I get receive and transmit. You have to select them one at a time. So RT means fader 1 is going to receive and transmit. Okay. And I think down here, the flags, I don't need a flag down here. When I hit apply, now I should be able to move that fader. Let's see. I'm on 1. Let me go to the slide the mixer over. I should be able to move that fader and see it moving now. And so you would do the same thing for all the faders. I stopped at 32 because let's face it, 32, it only does 32. So let's say I want to add the mute. Now, normally I would just go through and do all the faders. Boom, boom, boom. Then go through all the mutes, but you can do one channel at a time. So let's stick in with channel 1 on the Behringer. I'm going to click add another line. Okay, I'm going to select that line. Then I'm going to say learn this line. I'm going to push the mute button. All right, so the numbers change. You see now it's 2 and 0. I still want the flag to be receive and transmit, but I'm going to change it down here to mute 1. Which is, for me, the same as mute channel 1. All right, so what are we going to assign it to? Again, because this is a part of the mixer, we're going to assign it to the mixer. And we're going to, again, assign this to track 1. What are we going to assign it to? To the mute. And again, now the mute in this case is a toggle button. So I'm going to select toggle and I'm going to hit apply and OK. And so now I can toggle the mute on and off. So you would do that for every function of the mixer that you want to be able to control. Now, some of the other functions like the stop, the play, return to 0, I did that using buttons over here. It's a little more involved. I'm not going to go too deep in this. I just want to get you going so that you can get in here and play with this. So I think I assigned this button C, because I didn't want to mess with the button. Now, remember, when you get to playing with this stuff over here, you're also going to mess with the settings in Behringer. So I already know A out of the box by default controls the delay. So this, see if I can get some more delay. Make sure we're not killing the delay. Oh, we are. 2. Testing. 2. I'm not getting delay. Oh, I did. Okay. Never mind. I did something. I'll do the reverb. All right. So this is the reverb. And I know some of these controls over here will control the reverb. Testing 1, 2 like that. That's controlling the size of the room. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. So you're probably wondering why I'm using this over here. I've learned to love these DCAs. This is on another reverb. 2, 1, 2, 1. So that's second. This second one is, this is the built-in stuff. This is the built-in stuff for Behringer. So I didn't want to mess with the settings for set A. I didn't want to mess with none of these settings because when the delay is on, I got a song going, you can tap it, boom. And the delay, which I've disconnected playing around with it, will align itself to the beat tempo. So I decided, since I rarely go to the set B, which has some other stuff, or set C, I went to set C to set up my controls for Cubase. So on set C is where I have the return to 0, which is no longer on there because we removed everything. So I'm gonna show you how to set that up real quick. All right. So now that you understand why I chose C, we're going to choose C. I'm going to hit add another line and select that line, then hit learn, and then hit the button one time, and it's going to pick it up. It's 1 in 33. All right. So I'm going to label this return to 0. RT. I think they did RTN 0 or RTNZ, I guess. So that's what the controller is. It is to return to 0. It is not assigned. So now this time my assignment is going to be different. We're going to assign this to transport. Transport basically gives you device. There are some codes you can put in there, but again, there is no manual for me to use to know what the codes are. So my value is going to be return to 0. That's what I'm selecting. This will be a simple push button. I'm going to hit apply. And then I'm going to move where the marker is way out here. So when I hit that button, it should return to 0. See there? So no matter what controller, I could do this on my M Audio Code 61. It's got buttons. It's got faders. I can do the same thing. The only thing different would be I would have to go up here and select my code 61 as the MIDI controller. So that's how you sit here and program it. So 32 channels means you got to put in 32 fader commands, 32 mute commands, 32 pan commands. Let me do a pan real quick. So let me add a line and highlight that line and hit learn. Now this is important. This is where, even though the select button in the Behringer does not send any MIDI information, it does control the values of the MIDI information that is sent from the pan control. So I have to make sure I select channel 1 first. Okay. Hit the select button on the Behringer. That way, when I turn the pan knob, Behringer is going to send me the correct settings for channel 1 pan. Okay, so I got it selected, channel 1 selected. We in learn mode. Now I'm going to turn the pan knob. All right, so now it has picked up the pan knob. Now let's label it. I'll just call it fader 1 pan. You can label whatever you want. So now when I come down here, it's not assigned. I think this is go back to the VST mixer again. And again, we're assigning that command to track 1 only. My value, of course, now this has a couple of pan options. Standard pan, LR. I'm going to hit apply. Okay. So now when I look on the mixer, I have channel 1 selected. I have the pan selected. I mean, I'm moving the pan. Now, what I did notice is you cannot get this thing to go to 0. Okay. So that's odd. That means there's some commands that I'm missing or don't understand. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to try this pan, this other pan. I don't know what that does. Let's see what this does. Does nothing. Okay. So that second, wait, maybe I got to change the pan type. Let's see. Yeah, maybe let's try the combine pan. Well, that's the wrong channel. Okay, so that command doesn't seem to be connecting to, so it's the standard or 1 under standard panner, and the first option will get you your pan control. So there's more I could do, but I don't have any type of manual or any type of reference as to what command does what. I told you I would love to be able to move a fader and it jump to that fader in the mixer. And I'm sure there's a command for that, but I don't have nothing to go off of. So I'm still working this thing out. So I'm going to give you that template to get started. Maybe you will have more insight. Maybe you can figure this thing out and share it with your subscribers, share it with me, and I'll share it with my subscribers. But I hope you have fun. Now, I find it, I have fun. Now, again, we deleted everything from this. So I'm going to remove everything and I'm going to go to import and bring back in my Behringer settings, because I love to play with this when I mix. You know, I love to play with this when I mix. It just makes me, it brings back the fun in mixing. All right, hope this has helped. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. And again, if you know more, hey, let me know, because I definitely would like to make a template that does even more. Thank you guys for listening.